Greetings and welcome back to Prophetic Forecast. Wow, there's no other word to describe it. Wow, what a month October has turned out to be. I have so much to cover with you right now, and I don't know how long this is going to go, but I want to just get right on into it because I don't want to keep you too long. I promise you, by the end of this, all these things are going to flow together. They're going to make perfect sense. And it's worth every single second. So let's jump right on into it. And it really jumped right on into it. As soon as we hit October 1st, prophetic news jumped right into the mainstream media when President Donald Trump and the First Lady tested positive for COVID-19. And it wasn't just them. I mean, it was like rapid succession as we saw one person after another within the entities of the White House and the government, just one person after another who also tested positive. There, of course, was Hope Hicks, Senator Mike Lee, Senator Tom Tillis, Kellyanne Conway, Bill Stepien, Ronna McDaniel, Chris Christie, Barron Trump, General Gary Thomas, Stephen Miller, Admiral Charles Ray, reporters, military aides, staff, housekeeping staff, Secret Service agents. I mean, the list just went on and on and on, just one person after another. And it was like October 1st, boom. Then, now those were all in the mainstream media, but of course, our goal in this is to also look at the other news that's kind of hidden in the background. Several notable religious leaders in America who were strongly against mask orders and social distancing and shutting down also got sick. John Jenkins, the president of Notre Dame University, who had stated that reopening Notre Dame was worth the risk. Pastor Greg Laurie, who wasn't early on strongly against it, but he attended the Amy Barrett nomination announcement apparently without a mask. He tested positive. Pastor and televangelist John Hagee, whose ministry had strongly been against any restrictions of COVID. As you can even see by this sermon title, Coronavirus, Dress Rehearsal for the New World Order. He tested positive. And then even outside of the clergy, you have Dmitry Stuzhik, an Instagram influencer who was one for discussing how COVID was actually a hoax. He actually very sadly died in October from COVID-19. I mean, it just seemed fishy to me. As soon as October 1st comes, it was just rapid succession. And it wasn't just a lot of people, because really since March, February, it's been a lot of people in the United States. But this seems specifically to target people who had been not as careful with COVID precautions. People who had spoken out against it. People who were kind of flaunting that they weren't going to follow any kind of caution. It targeted those kinds of people. It was October 1st. It just seemed boom, 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 right down the roster there. Now, let me be really clear, and I'm going to have to maybe say it several times tonight, because obvious as we're looking forward to November, we know what big event is in November. We're going to have to talk about the election. We're going to have to talk about politics quite a bit. But I want to be really clear. This is not a political dig. I'm really adamant about this. I'm not strong into one side of the politics or another. So even if you start to hear me saying that, trust me, again, kind of said this at the beginning, when you see the full picture, you're just going to be like, wow, okay, there's a bigger thing going on than just one side or this side. So it may sound like I'm taking a political dig at one side, namely the Republican Party, who has been very in many cases, very anti-COVID, any kind of precautions or shutdowns. And I'm not saying that this was some sort of divine judgment or wasn't a divine judgment. I'm simply sharing the storyline because in light of Bible prophecy, a specific verse came to mind. I want to share that with you here. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 3. It says, "For when they, world leaders, say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape." All right, make sure you keep listening and listen carefully here. This new story I'm starting with is not a fulfillment of this verse, but it has the same type of culture. It teaches us the same kind of principle. It doesn't matter whether we're Christian or not, whether we believe in an end of the world or not, whether we believe in a literal interpretation of Revelation or a symbolic one or more of one in the middle, whether we're pre-trib or post-trib or mid-trib. It doesn't really matter if we believe in climate change or not, if we believe in mask wearing or not, if we vote Republican or Democrat or another party. Whatever we identify as, we cannot escape what is about to come. Yes, in the COVID scenario, we had a group of people saying, peace and safety, calm down, it's overreacting. And then sudden positive test, not sudden destruction, but sudden positive test came flying in as soon as we hit October. Bam, 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 bam. The end is going to come. World leaders will be saying, hey, it's all good, peace and safety. Just follow us, we'll get you through. We may think that our opinions are the right ones. We may believe that our path, especially our political path, is the one that will bring true peace and safety. We think that somebody can save our nation or our world. But in the end, there is only one way to be prepared. Notice the very next verse, verse 4. "But you, brethren, are not in darkness." He's speaking to the Christians in Thessaloniki. "But you, brethren, are not in darkness, so that this day, the second coming, the end, should overtake you as a thief." Now, in our October forecast, we talked about that idea of the second coming of Jesus being like a thief in the night. It will take the world by storm. People will be surprised by it, but not Christians, not those who are focused, not those of the day, only those in the dark. We have a way to prepare. It's called studying the Bible, paying attention to what's taking place. We've got to, and this is something some people have heard me say over and over and over again, we've got to keep our prophecy goggles on. We have to see the news, especially when I'm talking about prophecy goggles. I'm not saying every sermon has to be about prophecy. I'm not saying everything we do should be about prophecy. If you follow our YouTube channel, clearly not everything is about prophecy. But when we view situations and events in world news, our prophecy goggles need to be on. In other words, we need to be able to see these things through the lens of the Bible's prophecy, because it points us so that we are not of the darkness. The world will be saying peace, safety, relax, calm down. But we will be seeing what's really taking place, right? In the end, it's only through the study of God's Word. We've got to stay focused. And the end will not come as a surprise. It will not be a shock to you. We have prepared for the last days by being aware of what is really taking place. In fact, in his follow-up letter, 2 Thessalonians, Paul then says this in chapter 2, verse 8. Speaking of the Antichrist, the lawless one, and then the lawless one will be revealed. You notice he's working behind the scenes. He has to be revealed. Whom the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth and destroy with, notice, the brightness of his coming. Darkness flees in the light. Darkness fades immediately in the light. Darkness is destroyed by the light. The Antichrist will be revealed with brightness because he works in the dark. Family, The world is dark. Politics is dark. The things going on in this world, they're dark. It's scary. It's confusing. It's crazy. Everyone's taking sides while we've got a whole lot of world leaders saying, we got this, peace and safety. This is a definite strong message of October. This idea of peace and safety, this is the right way to go about it. The revelation of Jesus Christ, the last book of the Bible, reveals both Christ, the light, and the Antichrist, the darkness. Do not feel safe here. This world is not our home. Do not trust in the wisdom of man, because sudden destruction comes upon them, and they will not escape. It's been prophesied. Then the month just kept on rolling. One of those events that we discussed last time, and we saw that it was coming in October, was the signing of the Pope's encyclical Fratelli, Tutti, all brothers. And of course, as I mentioned last time, it was revealed that it's really all brothers and sisters, but that basically it's saying we're all one. We're all in this together. So here is the picture of him signing it before the shrine of Francis Assisi. And then I'm going to jump right on into the content here, because I've already discussed its background, what it was, what it means, in our last presentation. So if you didn't see that one, Prophetic Forecast, October 2020, I'll leave a link in the description below. You can go back and see that to save us time. I'm just going to jump right on into the content. And as we expected, as the Bible had clearly told us it was going to be about through prophetic revelation, the encyclical was a call to a one world government with a major economic reset. And I want you to remember that word as we go through tonight as well, through the study, reset. Because, quick side note, important, but a quick side note. I really, really wish I had stumbled upon this video before I had presented the October one, because I would have included it. It was perfect for that one, but I don't want to miss it because it's really, really important. Rome is not the only world power calling for a reset. On June 3rd, the royal family released a video on its official YouTube channel. So this wasn't some, side person, pretending to be the royal family. On their official YouTube channel, a video called #The Great Reset. Now, it was the words of Prince Charles, and as he spoke, it had scenes of nature and the world behind it, but then several words were flashing on the screen as he spoke. Words like reimagine, rethink. Now, I'm emphasizing the re because they actually put a colon between the re and all of these words. So they emphasized reimagine, rethink, reinvent, redesign, recreate, reform, rebalance, represent, or together it's represent. Restart, revolution, revolution, recognize, recognize. And it's strange too, because recognize flashed so fast it actually took me several moments, a minute or two, to actually pause it at the right moment to even read what the word was. All those other words I said to you all actually appeared 2, 3, 4 times on the screen. Recognize only once, and it just flashed by so quick, almost like a subliminal message that it was telling us to recognize what's going on, that we need to recognize. Well, we can recognize in their light, which is darkness, or we can recognize by the light of God's word. That's what we're trying to do, what's really taking place. To give you kind of an essence of what it was about, this great reset that they're calling for, let me read a paragraph from his speech. He said, as we move from rescue to recovery, strangely enough, also words that begin with R-E, as we move from rescue to recovery, therefore, we have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path. It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. We must use all the levers we have at our disposal, knowing that each and every one of us has a vital role to play. So Prince Charles calling for a reset. Now, why is this important? Well, in our last forecast, we discussed that written all over the website for this global compact on education, which was coming in October, that they had this same identical idea. Words that began with R-E, re. In other words, a redo. Let's get it right again. Let's go back and redo what we've done, but get it right. Let's do it again. You know, this is a really powerful fulfillment of Bible prophecy because this is exactly what Bible prophecy tells us would take place. Speaking about the beast of Revelation 13, the Antichrist, as he's also known as, in verse 3 it says this, "And I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world marveled and followed the beast." So this beast, according to Daniel 7, the little horn prophecy, would have power for 1,260 years. We know this to be 538 AD, and therefore then it lost its power in 1798. We know that to be true as General Berthet walked into the Sistine Chapel, grabbed the Pope and declared, "You will have no more power within the realm of Europe." But this prophecy says that a reset, a healing would take place, and that the same beast would heal and revive. It has a head that's mortally wounded, followed by a head that is healed. This mortal wound would heal. This is the seventh and final head. Rome is calling for a reset, a healing. Let's do this again. Britain is calling for a reset. Both political parties in the United States are calling for a reset. I mean, what else does "Make America Great Again" mean? It was great is what they're saying. We maybe all have different discussions about whether that's true or not. But what it's saying, what they mean by it is, it was great, it's not great, let's reset and make it great again. Both sides are calling for a reset. Why is everyone suddenly calling for a reset? You hit 2020, we have a turbulent year, and everyone's like, hey, let's reset the whole thing. It's calling for a healing of that very wound. We've got this all wrong. Let's do it again. The world is wounded. It is. That's truth. And all these different powers are calling it like it is. The world is wounded. The world is needing a reset. I know it needs a reset. But that reset can only happen through Jesus Christ our Lord. That's it. But the world is calling for a reset. It's calling for a healing of the wound. And we know from prophecy that they will choose the wrong kind of reset. They will call for the wrong kind of reset. They're going to focus on Antichrist rather than Christ. The substitute Christ rather than the genuine Christ. Okay, back to Fratelli Tutti. Fratelli Tutti very clearly calls for a reset. Notice this is in paragraph number 8. "It is my desire that in this our time, by acknowledging the dignity of each human person," which is a beautiful sentiment, by the way. We do need to respect and acknowledge the dignity of everyone. But he adds, "we can contribute to the rebirth," the reset, a healing of the wound, "of a universal aspiration to fraternity." He's calling for a reset, a rebirth in this encyclical. but he wants it to contribute to a universal aspiration to fraternity. By the way, the word Catholic means universal. Now, if I said universal or any other Protestant said universal, that wouldn't mean anything. But when the Pope says universal, he's calling for a rebirth of Catholic aspirations for fraternity. He is literally calling for a healing of Revelation's wound. He's literally saying we need a rebirth of what we lost. We lost this in 1798. We have to have that reset, a rebirth of that. He's calling for the seventh head to come, the healed wound. A few paragraphs later, he says this, paragraph 14. Nowadays, what do certain words like democracy, freedom, justice, or unity really mean? They have been bent and shaped to serve as tools for domination, as meaningless tags that can be used to justify any action. You know, something I said last time, and I really do mean this, is a lot of the times I don't have an issue with what he's saying, but how he means it, how he interprets it, and his solution to these things. You know, he's right in what he's saying here, but I want you to see a bigger point here because it becomes very clear as you read through the encyclical. When you think of democracy, freedom, and justice, and unity, which group comes to mind? When he's talking about world powers, world nations, what group, what country do you think of first? I mean, I immediately thought, oh boy, he's talking about the United States. This may be an encyclical for the world, but he is digging right at the United States. So why? Why is he coming after the United States? Well, we had to keep reading and notice that he continues to take indirect digs or comments about the United States of America. Notice paragraph 104. Nor is equality achieved by an abstract proclamation that, I mean, you can't get any more American than this, all men and women are created equal or are equal, right? I threw the word in there because, I mean, that's an American sentiment right there, that everyone is created equal. And he's saying that that's an abstract proclamation. What he's saying is this nation, this great nation, the United States, has it wrong. What he's saying is that they're hypocrites, that we're hypocrites, right? That we're hypocritical. We say these things, but we're not doing these things. So what's his issue with the United States? Why is that his point of this encyclical, is to correct the United States? Well, as we've discussed before, how about the time he came in 2015, spoke to our nation's leaders in a joint session of Congress and Senate, and the Senate, and he presented his ways of peace and unity and love and fraternity and solidarity, and we didn't take it. We rejected it, not for the right reasons, but we as a nation rejected it, and it was clear we rejected it during the election of Donald Trump. When you take someone who's so divisive and so the opposite of what the Pope is preaching and you elect him president, the nation said, we're not following you in 2015. We're going to vote this guy in 2016. Now, like him or not, this is not a dig or a compliment of Donald Trump, but like him or not, and I'm certainly not suggesting whether we should like him or not, this is a very true statement. Republicans kind of cheer this on, that he is divisive, that he is draining the swamp, that he's not there to be politically correct. Democrats point that out as an evil. Republicans point that out as a pro. I'm just stating it as a fact. He is divisive. His presidency has been very divisive. The Pope comes in 2015 and says, hey, we need solidarity and fraternity. The nation says, we're going to pick a divisive president. And then it's just blown up all this time since 2016. So what this encyclical is very clearly saying to the United States is, I told you so. You know, this was before our video ministry began, so I don't have it on film, but I know right after he came, I preached about it in our Bishop Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I said very clearly at the time, we're not going to listen, and he's going to come back and say, I told you so. In fact, I repeated that in our Rise of Antichrist series several times. So you could actually go back and see that several times. That was earlier in 2020. I said, the Pope's going to say, I told you so. He's going to say, I told you so. Well, here it is. Fratelli Tutti is him saying, United States, I told you so. Now, he actually continues again indirectly. He never names Donald Trump, but very indirectly, he continues to go after him and point at him as an issue and a problem. Again, before I keep reading, I'm not saying you should vote for Donald Trump because the Pope doesn't like him. Keep listening. We'll come full circle here, I promise. Speaking about social media use, the Pope says this in his encyclical. This is paragraph 45. Things that until a few years ago, just a few years ago, right, like 2016, could not be said by anyone without risking the loss of universal respect, can now be said with impunity, and in the crudest of terms, even by some political figures. He's speaking about social media use, the treatment of others. He's calling out people who are rude and nasty to each other, including political figures. I mean, come on. Everyone, again, both Republicans and Democrats say Trump's on Twitter all night long. I don't know when the guy sleeps. All night long, he's just belittling people, making fun of people. And again, some say that's a pro, some say that's a con. I'm not here right now to judge that right now. I'm just stating the facts. It's a very true statement. Now, he gets to talking about borders and walls, which is a very strong theme of our current presidency. The Pope says this in paragraph 121. No one, then, can remain excluded by borders and walls because of his or her place of birth, much less because of privileges enjoyed by others who were born in lands of greater opportunity. The limits and borders of individual states cannot stand in the way of this. He's calling for the falling apart, the dismantling of borders. It should just be wide open spaces, one nation, one government. And he's saying it can't continue on like this, where some people with greater opportunities, the United States, are excluding others because they weren't born in the United States. Again, attacking the political philosophy of President Trump. Paragraph 153 says this. There are powerful countries and large businesses that profit from this isolation, this nationalism, and prefer to negotiate with each country separately. I mean, that's literally what President Trump does, right? He doesn't want to be in big groups, big things like the G8 conference stuff. He wants to negotiate with each country separately. Today, no state can ensure the common good of its population if it remains isolated. Just time and time and time again in this encyclical, he is specifically attacking the current president of the United States, Donald Trump. Continue, paragraph 192. When a specific policy sows hatred and fear towards other nations in the name of its own country's welfare or safety. In other words, if you say so-and-so's bad and they make us unsafe, he's saying that's bad. There is need to be concerned, to react in time and immediately to correct the course. You see, the reason he's attacking President Donald Trump is that he's saying, that nation, I told you so. I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. You didn't do what I said, and look what's happening to your nation. You need a reset. This encyclical really, honestly is a 73-page endorsement of Joe Biden. Again, I know I'm going to have to keep saying this because someone's going to say, Pastor Phil just wants us to do this or that. I'm just stating the facts of these things. It clearly is an endorsement of Joe Biden and telling people they should revolt against President Trump. Again, stay with me. We're going to come full circle. All right. So he is saying, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. Maybe next time you should listen to me. Well, the next time, that wound is going to be healed. The Great Reset is coming. Sadly, it's the wrong kind of reset. So in this encyclical, he's very clearly calling out world leaders, specifically President Trump, and he's calling for a one world government. We've got to get rid of nationalism. We've got to get rid of borders. Got to get rid of walls. We've got to get rid of privileges. Everyone should be equal. Everyone should be one nation, one world government. Okay. Notice this isn't just my opinion. This is literally what he's saying. I mean, look at paragraph 100 here. He says this. He says, I'm certainly not proposing an authoritarian and abstract universalism, devised or planned by a small group and presented as an ideal for the sake of leveling, dominating, and plundering. So he's saying, I'm not calling for this kind of universalism, but what he's saying is, I am calling for universalism. I am calling for everyone to have one government, one leader in the world. And of course, he's stating the church should be that leader. The woman rides the beast in Revelation 17. So he's calling for this. He's just saying, well, I am calling for it, but not for those reasons. Not because I want it to be authoritarian, not because I want it to be abstract, not for the sake of leveling, dominating, and plundering, but those are words coming out of his mouth. Revelation tells us that it is actually for those reasons. So who are you going to believe? We're going to believe a speech by a man. We're going to believe the word of God. If you're not sold, continue. This is paragraph 161. In this regard, I have made it clear that I have no intention of proposing an irresponsible populism. Now, a populism is the idea that there are the citizens of the world versus the elite, the 99% versus the 1%. Populism states that 99% should rise up and take out the 1%, that the elite should be done away with. A good modern example of populism is the Occupy Wall Street movement that we had somewhat recently here. Now, he is saying we've got to follow, but he's saying, I'm not calling for an irresponsible populism. In other words, the world uniting together to rid itself of these elite. But what he is saying is, well, I am calling for a responsible populism. You know, he must be forgetting something really, really important. He is one of those elite. He is one of those 1%. I've been to the Vatican. I've seen St. Peter's Basilica. Trust me, he is one of the elite. Never once in this encyclical does he ever say anything about his own wealth or his own kingdom that he has. He just points fingers elsewhere. Why? Because the harlot of Revelation is paying her vows. She's giving her peace offerings. She's spreading her bed with tapestry and perfumes. And when the world yields to her, the world will not even realize that she is leading them to the slaughter. You know, those are all quotes from Proverbs 7 about the harlot of Revelation. And we won't take too much time to get into it other than those quotes. But I encourage you to read that chapter, Proverbs 7. It is really powerful. And it's exactly what's going on right now. Hey, guys, it's good. I got this. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to reset things. I'm good. But Revelation warns us, that's the pompous words, the prideful words. And then what follows it is a doom of hatred and persecution. The world will be in darkness and not even understand how it got there. But this one world government is quickly coming, and we are watching it get established. Everything in 2020 is a setup. Trust me. I mean, you don't have to trust me. Forget it. Don't trust me. Trust the word of God. It's all a setup. It's all a part of a big play. It's two wings of one bird. Then something else came rolling in that I didn't know about in October. Something else with the Pope when on October 10th, he gave a TED Talk. Now, TED Talks, for those who don't know, are typically a professional or an expert in a specific field giving a presentation on maybe an educational or historical or cultural aspect of that field. I haven't seen all of them. Many of them are really, really interesting. So one may think that the Pope came to talk about religion, spirituality, walking closer to God, walking closer through Jesus. But instead, in light of his encyclical exactly 1 week before, he spoke about climate change and the economy. So I will leave a link below for this as well. If you want to watch this whole TED Talk, you can find that link. But there's, because I don't have time to go through all of it, but there's one major point he made that I want to make sure you understand. Now, you should know something before we read this quote. It's one very long run-on sentence. And I'm not saying that to disparage him, right? I'm not trying to insult him. Maybe it was the translator. Maybe it makes more sense in Italian. I can't tell you exactly, but I'm just setting that up so that you know why it kind of almost doesn't make sense. It's just kind of one long run-on sentence. So I'm going to read through it, and then we can come back and kind of digest it a little bit. But here's the sentence. One way to encourage this change is to lead businesses towards the urgent need to commit themselves to the integral care of our common home by excluding from investments those companies that do not meet the parameters of integral ecology, while rewarding those that work concretely during this transitional phase. Interesting words. Who put at the center of their activities sustainability, social justice, and the promotion of the common good. Okay, it was a long sentence, so let's go back a little bit and notice some of the ideas here. Number one way to encourage this, change. He's calling for a reset. Let's fix this, right? Let's change this. And then he says we need to exclude from investments toward our investments towards businesses who are not helping in this climate change or social justice fight. Now, how do you exclude businesses from your investments? You don't shop there. You don't buy or sell with them, right? And then he says we need to reward those businesses who are working with the common good, with the majority of the world, with this one world government, with the ideas of climate change and social justice. Climate change, the world falling apart, social justice, all important topics. I'm not going to make light of those. Very important topics. But notice what he's saying. He's saying that we have to be careful with who we buy and sell from, who we exchange and transact with, the businesses. We should punish those who aren't getting on board with us, and we should reward those who are getting on board with us. And it calls it a transitional phase. Transitional phase? That shouldn't make sense. We're resetting, right? There's a reset, is what he's saying. The transition is at the reset. Is this the transition for something else? He never tells us what the something else is, but Revelation does. What he's saying is that we have to be careful with who we buy and sell with or from. Sound familiar? Revelation 13, 16, and 17. He, the beast, causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now, I have a whole presentation, if you haven't followed our YouTube channel before, called National Treasure. I'll leave that down below, also in the links, and that goes into a lot more detail about this mark of the beast and the seal of God and what all these things are. But I want you to catch here, this is a prophetic revelation of what the Pope just said he's going to do. He says, let's be careful who we buy and sell from. Let's punish companies not getting on board with us. Let's reward these businesses who are getting on board with us. he's saying, let's make rules and laws, and even if they're cultural rules and laws about buying and selling. He's calling for the mark of the beast. If we do not want to work for the common good, he says, as defined by those living in darkness, their definition of the common good, then we need to punish them. This is what he's calling for. You know, this is the exact recipe that the devil has used before. Notice this in John 11. Speaking about those turning on Christ, it says, and one of them, Caiaphas, being high priest that year, said to them, you know nothing at all, nor do you consider that it is expedient for us, expedient is another word for it is for our common good. It is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and not that the whole nation should perish. That's John 11, 49 and 50. To set up the rebellion against Christ and to take someone who was healing people, loving people, caring for people, who was showing the love of God to everyone and anyone, to get him to be found guilty, to put him on the cross, that's how they sold it off as. You know, we have to look at the common good. It's better for us that he dies than we all die. That's exactly the feeling, the nature, the culture at the very end. If you're not getting on board with us, you're the reason that everything's turning sour. We have to get rid of you. I'm not saying that yet, because right now it's we're paying our vows, everything smells good, looks good, you know, we're healed now, we're doing fine, we're going to take care of you. But as soon as he actually has that power, as soon as he, or you know, the papacy, what I mean by he, whether it's him or some other pope, whenever he has that power, he is the world leader. And then there are people who are defying his laws and saying, we're not going to do that. We're going to do this. This is the common good. The Bible is the common good, not man's laws. That's not leading us to the common good. This is the spirit in which will come. Hey, everyone, listen, things keep getting worse because of those people right there. It's better that they die than we all die. We've got to rid the world of them. Then we come up to the last item we discussed. Last time in our prophetic forecast for October, which was the Global Compact on Education. Well, here's the update. It was postponed, basically. They did have a small event on October 15. And at that event, one sentence really played out, really was important for us to hear, was while they're saying it's going to happen again, or they're going to have the pact signing, they are going to have people come together. The guy who kind of heads it up, the pact, the Global Compact on Education, said this. He is quoted as saying, world leaders, religious leaders, educators, sports stars, and celebrities. He didn't name anybody or any country. He just said world leaders, political leaders, religious leaders, educators, sports stars, and celebrities have agreed. He said many have agreed to come to Rome and sign this pact. He didn't have a date yet. He said when COVID is over, at least when the restrictions are lifted enough so they could gather, that a lot of very important people are going to come and sign this pact with Rome. So we'll have to check in again on that when they plan it. We're going to keep our eyes open, our prophetic goggles on, aren't we? Now there's one more item from October we need to discuss before we even get to November. So hang in there with me. A common theme this year throughout 2020 has been things in space, right? Now, there's been discussions of aliens constantly throughout 2020, and asteroids and comets and the whole bit. And I ended the last forecast by mentioning that eventually a supernatural event or many supernatural events will take place. We know this from prophecy, that this will take place. Someday Satan will appear as an angel of light. How will that happen exactly? I've been teaching that it will happen as a Marian apparition. He will be pretending to be the Virgin Mary. Could be that, likely that. Could be an alien in disguise of a beautiful alien. Could be a disguise of Gabriel. Could be in disguise of Christ eventually. He's going to come as this beautiful healing light. Regardless of what it is or when it is, We know who it is. It's going to be Satan in disguise, the devil in disguise. But as we move closer and closer to the Battle of Armageddon, it's those miracles that are going to be taking place that will gather the world in this one world government for the Battle of Armageddon. Two quick verses here I know I've shared before, but it says in Revelation 13:13, he performs great signs so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. A supernatural event taking place heaven to earth, right? Coming down from heaven. Continues in Revelation 16:14. For they are spirits of demons. It's not Mary, it's not aliens, it's spirits of demons performing signs, miracles, and wonders, it is what that means. Which go out to the kings of the earth and of the whole world to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty, which in the very next verse is called the Battle of Armageddon. So definitely the Bible's telling us something will come down from space. It's going to happen. A false revival, false miracles, these things are going to take place. An angel of light is coming. Watch out, be ready, don't be deceived. And then all these things happening in 2020, and suddenly the government's kind of open about UFOs and unexplained phenomena, and senators like Marco Rubio calling for more openness with the American public, and Navy videos being released. And we've talked about that throughout this year. But then here in October, former Senate Majority Leader Reid from Nevada said this in an interview. There's a documentary coming up. It's not coming to what it's called, but it's about aliens and about what the government knows about aliens. And he's quoted as saying this. I should tell you why the dots that are there. It's not because I'm skipping things. He's pausing as he says it. You can tell if you watch the real clip that he's trying to be very careful with what he says. He doesn't want to say too much, but he's trying to be honest at the same time. Like, he is really trying to make sure we get the point. So that's what the dots are. It's his pauses, not me skipping things. Why the federal government all these years has covered up. Pause. Put brake pads on everything. Pause. Stopped it. Pause. I think it's very, very bad for our country. Then the question comes to him, the statement then, so are you saying that there's things that haven't seen the light of day? Some things, I think is what the interviewer says, some things that haven't seen the light of day. Reid then says, I'm saying most of it hasn't seen the light of day. It's interesting, with all this stuff going on in 2020, we've had asteroids zooming by, comets coming by, ones we haven't seen before, like Halley's Comet that we know is on this big cycle, we know when it returns. I mean, just brand new comets coming by and asteroids coming by that are recently discovered. All this stuff about aliens coming out from the government. It's interesting that he's discussing things that haven't seen the light. Those secrets are in the dark because they are of the darkness. So keep being watchful as we move on into November for a supernatural appearance or more of these clues that the government is slowly preparing us. They're slowly turning up the heat. They're boiling, right? They're going to try to boil us here, and they're slowly turning up the heat so we don't jump out like that frog about UFOs and extraterrestrials and things. But I want you to remember, the reason we want to stay focused on it isn't because we're scared. It's because Jesus gives us a very clear warning. Do not go. Do not look. And you can read those in Matthew 24. I didn't put it in our slides, but Matthew 24, Jesus says, when these false Christs come and you hear about it, don't go. Don't look. So those videos start popping up on social media, turn off the social media. When those videos pop up on the news, change the channel. Don't watch these things. Why? Because they're going to be beautiful. We know that. We know it's going to be beautiful, something we've never seen before. It's going to be hypnotic, mesmerizing. We're going to want to believe, just like Eve when she went to the tree, is because the serpent was so beautiful. We can learn from that. Don't go out and look. All right, I'm really out of time for the recap of October. There was just so much. We need to get to November. So I want to just move on to there. And I don't even have time to talk about the ecological disaster in Russia. And so I'll leave a link down below for that. But in really short, Hundreds of sea animals suddenly came washing up on the beach. Surfers who had been out there started being covered in rashes and getting sick. There was something in the water just that was nasty and gross. Nature is turning on us. We see that more and more. We don't have time to talk about the hurricanes either in this month. So much more to talk about. But we've got to get to November. You know the big event, November 3rd, that we're going to spend the last few minutes discussing. But before we get there, I want to tell you about something that's coming November 2nd. Since we're on the topic of space, we'll stick with that topic before heading back to the election. Yet again, in 2020, another newly discovered asteroid is going to be coming zooming past the Earth. In fact, there's a 0.41% chance that it hits the Earth. Now, I'm not telling you that it is going to hit the Earth, but I'm just telling you that there is a 0.41% chance of it hitting the Earth. That sounds incredibly small, and in the big picture, that is really small. But typically, the percentage is like 0.00001 or whatever. So 0.41 is a huge exponential growth, at least from that. It's big enough that Neil deGrasse Tyson had to even come out and speak out against the idea that it's gonna smash the Earth. I mean, he was like, "Hey, it might hit the Earth, but don't worry." And he had to calm people's nerves by saying, "Don't worry. It's small enough that if it does, it'll likely burn up in the atmosphere, etc., etc." Interesting. Fire from heaven, burning up in the atmosphere. I'm just saying, pay attention to what's coming in the news. 0.41%, by the way, is a higher chance of dying from that, of it hitting the Earth, than you dying of COVID, which is 0.062%. And of course, those numbers change based on which political side you listen to. That's just the number. Don't get mad at me for the 0.062 if you don't like that number. That's the number that Neil deGrasse Tyson, or at least the article I was reading, I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson himself who said it, but maybe it was just the author of the article. That's the number they gave, that this number, 0.41, is larger than a chance of getting COVID, of dying from COVID. So it's interesting how many newly discovered comets, asteroids, UFOs, aliens, I mean, it's just constantly in the news throughout 2020. We're being set up. Something is coming. Just be prepared, because curiosity, right? I know me. Curiosity is going to get me. I'm going to want to watch. But we will be less curious if we know who it is, and if we know the warning that Jesus says, do not go, do not look. All right. Also on this topic, evangelical false prophet Pat Robertson, and I'll stick to that word, false prophet, no matter what, because he has declared when Jesus is coming. He has talked about the end of the world. He has said events will happen, dates that they'll take place, and none of them have come true. So evangelical false prophet Pat Robertson declared on October 20 that President Trump will win a second term, that people will continue to defy him, that God has chosen President Trump, that people, meaning the Democrats, will continue to defy him in that term, and that at the end of his term, 4 to 5 years from his re-election, an asteroid will hit the Earth and punish those who have been defying President Trump. I'll put the link below if you'd like to read about that as well. But let's get to the big topic that's on our minds, which comes 24 hours after this asteroid will pass the Earth, the United States election. Now, you heard me, and I told you if you hung in there long enough, we'd come full circle back to this, and that you'd see the whole picture here. So you heard me discuss what Pope Francis thinks of Donald Trump, and it seems very clear that through this encyclical he's saying, don't vote for Trump, vote for Biden. So you may assume then that I'm going to say, hey, we shouldn't follow the Pope, we should vote for Donald Trump. However, let me throw a curveball at you. What you likely don't know is that while the United States is suffering what I've been calling for the last year a civil war, it's not with guns and tanks, but it's a civil war going on in our nation, the Vatican has been fighting through one as well. You know, these divided splits, these civil wars have been a real issue in 2020, hasn't it? I mean, America and Rome, and I'm going to tell you more about the Rome one, but what about the royal family? I mean, you've got William and Harry on different sides, and Harry and Meghan kind of leaving the roost and doing their own thing and breaking ties. what we see is this common theme that one side is more traditional, more historical, and the other side is more liberal thinking, more progressive in their thinking. And you get these splits. The split is becoming bigger and bigger in the United States. In Britain it was, and Harry and Meghan are more the progressive, and the royal family is more traditional. You see this, by the way, in the Seventh-day Adventist Church over the last few years, this fight between historical Adventism and progressive Adventism. We're just following right on into it, right? We're buying in our tickets on the same ridiculous train that the world's buying. We've got to really stop that mess. But what you may not know is that the Vatican has been having this major split as well. Many Catholics around the world have been calling out Pope Francis for this progressive stuff, especially this new encyclical. His calls for new humanism have been very polarizing for Catholics. The most notable one is retired Archbishop Vigano. And he's been he's retired because him and Pope Francis never saw eye to eye, and he was constantly calling him out, and then he retired. Maybe it was a forced retirement, I don't know, but he retired, and he's been ever since been coming right out very strongly against Pope Francis's progressive ideas. And also the wildly popular YouTube channel, Catholic YouTube channel, LifeSite, which is really an American Catholic LifeSite news channel. You may have seen stuff from this pop up on your Republican Protestant friends' Facebook timeline or their Instagram. And I guarantee none of them even realize they're just looking at headlines typically. Most people don't even read articles anymore, and that's a whole other pathetic thing that people do these days. But a lot of Protestant Republicans are sharing this as if it's good things, but they don't even realize that it's ties to Catholic theology. LifeSite News has strongly called out the hypocrisy and the disturbing theology of Pope Francis. They had a very strict response to the Pope's October 21st public comments in favor of same-sex civil unions. I don't have time for that one either in this presentation. Guess what? A link will be found below if you want to read more about what the Pope said. But they came right out very strongly against it. Many American Catholics are straight up calling this Pope Satan in disguise. Many of them are straight up calling him the Antichrist. And they're not saying this necessarily because of a Bible study or because they're, seeing the truth. It's just because they're seeing their church fall apart and there's this split. There's this nastiness going on. This divisiveness is even amongst those in the Vatican. So while Pope Francis is very strongly condemning Donald Trump and basically very strongly endorsing Joe Biden, the other side of that equation, the American Catholics are saying, absolutely not. We will follow Donald Trump anywhere and everywhere. We will obey him. They're literally saying these things, and they're saying no Catholic should ever vote for Joe Biden. In fact, on October 20th, LifeSite News put out a 17-minute long video about how President Trump is bringing America back to God. Guess what? Link in the description below if you want to see the whole video. But a 17-minute long video about how President Trump is bringing America back to God, that he has been called on by God to fix America. Basically what they're saying is he is our reset. He is the one fixing things. Pope Francis says Joe Biden will do it for America. I can do it for America, he's saying. The other side of the Vatican, right, the other side of Catholicism saying, Donald Trump is the one God has called to do this. In those 17 minutes, they spent a lot of time talking about all the things that Donald Trump has done in the name of Jesus. They say in the name of Jesus, or for the Christian church. Most notably, they shared, and I'll get out of the way so you can see this clearly. This is a screenshot right from the video. They shared this and discussed this notable picture of President and First Lady Trump kneeling before a shrine in Washington, D.C. to Pope John Paul II, the Pope who died in 2005. They went into great lengths about all that Donald Trump is doing for Catholicism, even really kind of hinting that he is Catholic. They don't say that, but in pictures like this and things they say, they're saying that he's doing the work of the Catholic Church. They even brought up a prophecy by a Catholic man in 1980 by Tom Zimmer, who apparently prophesied that one day in the future, remember this is 1980, I was born in 1980, that's 40 years ago, okay? That one day Donald Trump, who was just a businessman in New York at the time, would one day bring America back to God. Now, Zimmer died in 2009, but he shared the prophecy with a doctor. And after Trump won the election in 2016, this doctor came forward and said, hey, Tom Zimmer, this guy that's died 7 years ago, he told me it was a prophecy from God. God's anointing is upon Donald Trump, and he is going to bring us back to God. They believe that President Trump will be reelected, that he will spend the next 4 years tearing down the wall between church and state. And yet again, I'll put a link to that 17-minute video down below. So here is what I'm saying. Forgive me if you don't agree, but I think that the facts are staunchly in favor of what I'm about to say. The way things are shaping up is this. A vote for Donald Trump puts us one step closer to the mark of the beast. A vote for Joe Biden puts us one step closer to the mark of the beast. Do you know what? Satan has our nation right where he wants us. This is exactly what he wants. He wants two wings of the same bird. Two guys, total opposite sides, couldn't be any more different other than the fact that they're rich white guys, right? Older white guys. But in their philosophies, their political training, their ideologies, they couldn't be any more different. And then he's got the Vatican split in two. And one side championing Donald Trump, one side championing Joe Biden. It doesn't matter who wins. Either one could work with the Pope. Either one could stretch their hand across the Atlantic and join hands with Rome. To prove the point, let us close this whole discussion. We're getting close to the end, I promise, by pointing out the ultimate focus of both sides. You see, so often the devil splits these things in half. One side over here, one side over here, and then really, that's why I keep saying two wings of the same bird. They have one focus. You don't hear it, but you've got to pay attention with your prophecy goggles on. Both of these sides of the Vatican, who are so adamantly against each other in ideology and practice the whole bit, calling each other out, they both have the same focus in the end. At the end of Fratelli, Tutti, Pope Francis tells us what can change the world. He tells the reader who can change the world. He says this: for many Christians, this journey of fraternity also has a mother whose name is Mary. Having received this universal motherhood at the foot of the cross, she cares not only for Jesus, but also for, quote, he's quoting Revelation 12:17, quote, the rest of her children. He continues, in the power of the risen Lord, she wants to give birth. Remember at the very beginning, paragraph 8, he says we need a rebirth. Now he's saying who's going to do it? She wants to give birth to a new world where all of us are brothers and sisters. Fratelli, Tutti. Paragraph 278. He does all of this stuff, all these paragraphs. It's 73 pages long with 7 pages of endnotes. It's 80 pages long total. All of it condemning the United States, condemning President Trump, going on the attack, calling for one world government, a new world order. And then by the end, he tells us how we can truly accomplish it. He goes full circle. He says, we need a rebirth. And then he says, who can give birth to the new world? He's giving the glory to Mary. We know who that really is. Sorry, family, friends, it's not really Mary. It will be Satan in disguise. So the one side The progressive side, the vote Joe Biden side, is saying Mary's going to fix it. On the other side, we have LifeSite News and the traditional side, the historical side, the follow church law, Donald Trump is it, be pro-life, don't ever vote for a Democrat. This side of the Vatican is saying the exact same thing. In fact, throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, throughout 2020, LifeSite News has been very focused on Fatima. I did a series about Fatima called The Rise of Antichrist. I can put that link down below. I also did a shorter, quicker, more focused version about Mary, the apparitions of Mary, called What We Need to Know Before May 2020. I can put that in the description down below as well. I've been studying this website because they're the ones saying, Mary's coming back. Mary's coming back. Fatima's going to happen again. She's going to come back. Fatima, just in real short, if you don't know, Fatima is just an apparition in 1917 where she, apparently it was Satan in disguise, I'm sorry, but it was, where she appeared 6 times over 6 months to some children, a new education for children, like the Global Compact on education. But here's just a screenshot of one of the many 2020 videos from them, signs that the Fatima predicted chastisement may have begun. You listen to it and they're saying, yeah, we didn't listen to Mary at Fatima, and so now she's punishing us with the COVID-19 pandemic. And throughout 2020, the rosary has been dedicated to Our Lady of Fatima on LifeSite News. So you've got one side, the progressive, liberal, Joe Biden side, right? The Vatican side, who's voting for Joe Biden, wants Joe Biden, endorsing Joe Biden, is saying, don't worry, vote Joe Biden, turn away from Donald Trump, but Mary's got this. She's going to give birth to a whole new world. And you've got the other side, total different ideologies, different politics, focused pro-Trump, they've been very, LifeSite News lately has been like super pumped about Amy Barrett and pumping out information about why she needs to be on the Supreme Court. Very, very, very pro-Republican. But in the end, they say the same thing. Vote Republican, but Mary's going to get us through this. 2 wings, same bird. You can vote for Joe Biden. You can vote for Donald Trump. I'm just not going to tell you who to vote for, but you have a liberty of conscience, don't you? Who should a Christian, American Christian vote for? Well, pray, study, and vote your conscience. That is what makes our nation great. The freedom to vote for ourselves without a pastor or a church or anybody telling us who to vote for. So go vote your conscience. But I'm just telling you, either way, the end could come through either side. Through Trump, through Biden. It can happen. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying the recipe is there. It can happen through either side. So, do you want my prediction, my forecast for what will happen in November? Well, here's what I'm thinking will likely happen. Regardless of whether Donald Trump or Joe Biden win, they're not going to finish their term. I really believe Mike Pence or Kamala Harris will end up finishing their term. It may even happen before the inauguration in January, for all I know. It's not necessarily what I want. It's not what I want. I'm not saying that's what I want. It's just a prediction. But it's kind of based on prophecy. I see one of them, either vice president nominee, being a whole lot, even though we see, as we've presented tonight, either Biden or Trump can do it, I see one of these two more easily joining hands with Rome across the Atlantic. I think it's far more likely to happen with one of them as president. But again, Satan has both sides prepared for this deception. Jesus has prepared us for the coming deception. He has revealed the darkness so we can stay in his marvelous light. So keep your eyes open to prophecy as we head into November. Keep your eyes upon Jesus, upon his word, and see what he has in store for you today.